Hi everyone. In this example we are comparing the number of chocolate chip cookies in two different brands of cookies. There's the Keebler Elf cookies right over here. There's the Keeblers, and the numbers here in this data set are the number of chocolate chip cookies there were in each cookie. So for example, a couple of cookies had 20 in them each, a couple of cookies had 21, 3 had 21, 1 had 22. They're already sorted in order, so just so you know, get rid of all these guys. And then the other type is the store brand cookie right there. And these cookies also had chocolate chips in them, and we're going to be comparing how they compared to the Keebler Elf brand. Okay, so part one of this is to find the 5-number summary for each brand. So to find the 5-number summary, if you remember, that is the minimum, the maximum, and the 3 quartiles. So the minimum and the maximum are kind of easy to see from the data set. For example, here are the mins. For the Keebler it was 20, and for the store brand it was 14. And down at the very, very bottom of the data you see the largest. The maximums were 35 for the Keebler brand and 42 for the store brand. Okay, so now we have to find the quartiles. We've got 2 of the 5-number summaries, but we have to now find the quartiles. So to find the quartile, remember when you have the quartiles, you first find the median, and then you find the next medians of the lower and upper half. Okay, so Q2 equals the median. In this case, we have 24 observations. Now, I've already counted these. You can count them yourself if you want to hit pause and take the time. But in this case, we have n equals 24. If n is equal to 24, that is an even number. So that means that Q2 is equal to the average of the halfway of 24 is the 12th, and the next observation is the 13th. Okay, so if I count down to the 12th, let's see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So the 25 is the 12th. That's the halfway point, and there'll be 12 more observations after that. Let's just make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, exactly. So the medians, the second quartiles, are going to come between 25 and 26 for both Keebler and also for the store brand. So they have the same medians, the same second quartiles. So in this case, Q2 is actually equal to 25 plus 26 divided by 2, which is equal to 25.5. Okay, now get a different color. In order to find Q1 and Q3, we look at the amount of observations which are lower. So there were 12 observations that were lower than Q2. So there was 12 of those. So there's n equals 12, which is still an even number. Okay, so when we're going to find Q1, we say n is equal to 12. Again, that's even. So the median will be equal to the average of the 6th, half of 12, and the 7th. Okay, so if we count down, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the 7th. So this is where Q1 will go. Q1 will go right there. And also, to find Q3, we would count back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that will be where Q3 goes. The average between the 28 and the 30. Okay, so for the Keebler brand, we have the minimum is equal to 20. The first quartile is the average of 22 and 23. So 22 plus 23 divided by 2, which is equal to 22.5. Q2, we already found that up above in orange, that was 25.5. Q3 is the average of 28 and 30. So that's 28 plus 30 divided by 2, which is equal to 29. Finally, for the maximum for the Keebler brand, it was equal to 35. Okay, change color here. Now let's do the store brand. If we go through the same process for the store brand, the minimum for them was equal to 14. Q1 is equal to this little space right there between 21 and 23. So 21 plus 23 over 2, which is 22. Q2 was the median we already found, that was 25.5. Q3 is equal to the space between 29 and 30. That's where Q3 would go. So 29 plus 30 divided by 2, which is 29.5. And then finally the maximum is equal to 42. Okay, so we have now completed the 5-number summary for each brand. This part we have done. 5-number summary for each brand. Okay, so now the second question is, does either brand have outliers? All right, well, let's go back to the Keebler brand. Keebler, the way we would figure the outliers is we complete the lower fence, which is equal to Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR, in the upper fence, which is equal to Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. Okay. The IQR, if you remember, is Q3 minus Q1. So for the Keebler brand, that would be 29 minus 22.5. And 29 minus 22.5 is equal to 6.5. Okay, that means the lower fence is equal to Q1, 22.5, minus 1.5 times 6.5, and that is 12.75. The upper fence is equal to Q3, which was 29 plus 1.5 times 6.5, and 29 plus 1.5 times 6.5 is 38.75. Okay, so now the question is, did any of the data for the Keebler brand not fall between 12.75 and 38.75? Are there any of this data that we have over here fall outside that range? Well, there were no observations lower than 12.75, and there were no observations higher than 38.75, so we'd say there are no outliers. The IQR for the store brand is equal to 29.5 minus 22, which is equal to 7.5, which is a little bit larger than the IQR for the Keebler brand. The IQR for the Keebler brand was 6.5, which is smaller than it was for the store brand. So the store brand is more widely dispersed. Okay, so now the lower fence for the store brand would be Q1, which is 22 minus 1.5 times 7.5, which is 10.75. And the upper fence is equal to Q3, which was 29.5 plus 1.5 times 7.5, 29.5 plus 1.5 times 7.5, which is 40.75. Okay, so now we ask ourselves, were there any observations, any data that was not between 10.75 and 40.75? So the 14, that was all between everybody all the way down to the 36, but that 42 right there was not. So that 42 that is an outlier. Doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it was an unusually weird observation. Okay, so now we have completed part 2. Did either brand have outliers? Okay, so now we move on to make a box plot for each brand. So I've copied the 5 number summaries for each brand right here, and I'm just going to make a box plot for each one. So the first thing that I do, I'm going to work on the Keeblers. I find the quartiles. So here are the quartiles, Q1 through Q3, and I mark little boxes where they would go. So for example, 22.5 is just a little bit more than 22, about right there. And Q2 is 25.5, so it's almost 26, so maybe about right there or so. And Q3 is at 29, so that's about right there or so. And then I box off that middle part. Now that middle part represents the middle 50% of all of the data. Okay, so that is the middle 50%. Then I look at the minimum, which was 20. So 18 down to 20 is about right there. And I draw a line from 20 to the box. And then I draw another line up from the third quartile up to the maximum, which was 35. Okay, so then you draw the quartile up to 35, which is about right to there. And something like that. Okay, so that's Keebler. I'm just going to write Keebler above that so we know. Now for the store brand, switch to red. For the store brand, again, start with the quartiles. Q1 was 22. That's a little bit lower than what the Keebler was. Q2 was 22.5. 25.5. So the same. And then we had Q3, which was 29.5. So that was 29.5. It's about right here or so. And then we connect these up. Something like that. I have to get rid of that Keebler, I think. And then we draw lines down to the minimum, down to 14, which was, and then one down or up from the Q3 up to 42 right there. So 42 is way over there. And there you go. So there is a box plot for each one. This is for the store brand now. And what we can conclude is that the store brand was much more widely dispersed than the Keebler brand. So the Keebler brand was much more consistent. Now, there's one more thing about this, and that is that outlier. Remember up here at the top of the screen, we had this outlier right there? Sometimes what they will do is instead of drawing the line all the way up to the outlier, which was right here, they'll put a little star right there. And I'm going to erase this. And instead they will draw the line up to the next highest value from the outlier. The next highest was a 36. So we'll kind of pretend that that's the maximum, and we'll draw the line up to the 36, which is about right here. And that's about where the 36 is, so it'll look like that. So when you look at some occasional box plots, you'll notice that the line doesn't go all the way, then there's a little dot or an asterisk out there. Sometimes it's just filled in with a little dot. And that dot represents that there was, in fact, an outlier. Okay, so if I look back up here, have we done everything we set out to do? We made a box plot for the data now. We did that. And can we answer the question, which was more consistent? Well, the one that was more consistent is the one that has the less variation, less variability. And in that case, the Keebler brand was more consistent. It's right here. Keebler was more consistent. All right, well, I hope that helped to go through that again.